My name is Ethan Miller, and I am a 67-year-old retired master carpenter living in a quiet suburb of Dallas, Texas. What I am about to share with you is the night that forever changed the way I understood love and protection. A story I have carried in my heart for years, which taught me that people sometimes reveal their true selves in the most unexpected moments. If you have ever had to protect someone you love from a cruel disappointment, hit the like button to cheer up this old man's heart. Please subscribe to the channel, Granddad's Diaries, so you don't miss my future life stories, which I always tell with great care. And tell me in the comments where you are watching this video from and what time it is there right now. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between a new love and a true love? It makes me so happy to know what corner of Texas or the country is listening to me, and what time of day you took a moment to listen. It all started when I was a kid growing up here in the suburbs of Dallas. My mother always said I had too open a heart, believing in people too easily. She used to make those warm, sweet pecan pies and tell me that not everyone had the same good intentions we did. I grew up in a simple family. My dad worked at the railway yard, and my mom took care of the house with that warm, caring Texas way. Since I was little, I dreamt of having a big family, full of love. I watched my parents caring for each other, especially when my dad came home tired from work and my mom warmed up a hot dinner. That marked me deeply. I wanted that same warmth, that same partnership. When I started working as a carpenter in the city workshop, I was always known as a hard-working, trustworthy guy. Marrying young was common back then. I met my first wife, Nadia, at a local church picnic. She had a smile that lit up the whole park when we danced. We got married and were very happy for years. Nadia gave me the most precious gift of my life, my son, Owen. But Owen was born special, with a rare syndrome that affected his cognitive development. While he grew in body, his mind remained gentle and innocent, like that of a child. Nadia never saw that as a problem. She said Owen was our little angel sent by God. We took care of him with all the love in the world. Nadia had infinite patience. She taught Owen with kindness. She celebrated every small achievement of his as if it were the greatest victory. We were a complete and happy family, even with all the challenges. But life sometimes takes away those we love the most when we least expect it. Nadia got sick and passed away when Owen was 30 years old. I was left alone caring for my son, and I can say those were the hardest days of my life. Owen missed his mother terribly, and I did not know how to fill that void. It was then I met Madison at the community center. She seemed to understand our situation. She always asked about Owen with genuine-sounding interest. She said she admired my dedication as a father. Little by little, we got closer, and she started spending time at our house. Madison was different from Nadia, more modern, more decisive. She said she wanted to take care of both of us, that Owen needed a mother figure. With my naive heart, I believed I had found a second chance at happiness for our small family. After several months of dating, Madison accepted my marriage proposal. Owen was very excited. He called her new mom and always smiled when he saw her. She smiled back. But now I realize it was a smile that never reached her eyes. The wedding was simple at the small local chapel with a few relatives and friends. Owen looked handsome in his suit, so proud to see his dad happy again. Madison looked radiant in her white dress, and I was sure we were starting a new chapter full of love. But it was on our very first night, as husband and wife, that I would discover who Madison really was, beneath that mask of understanding. After we arrived back home, we had decided to spend the night at the house instead of a hotel so Owen would feel more comfortable. Madison began to show a tiredness that seemed strange to me. Throughout the entire reception, she had been lively, chatting with everyone, smiling for pictures. But as soon as we entered the house, it was as if a curtain had fallen over her face. She sat on the edge of the couch and sighed deeply, looking at the luggage still by the front door. "Ethan, I'm exhausted," she said, running a hand through her hair. "This day was so intense, so hectic. I need to rest." I understood. Of course, a wedding is tiring, all the preparation, the emotion, the congratulations. But there was something in her voice, a coldness that hadn't been there during our engagement. It was our first night as husband and wife, and I expected at least to talk, plan our future together, maybe open the expensive bottle of Cabernet a friend had gifted us. "All right, my love," I replied, trying to hide my disappointment. "We can talk tomorrow about our plans, about how we are going to organize life now that we are a family." Madison just nodded, already getting up to take pajamas out of a bag. "Yes, let's talk about all that tomorrow. Now, I just want to sleep." We spent our first night as a married couple sleeping on opposite sides of the king-size bed, an abyss of silence between us. I stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathing, which seemed forced, as if she were pretending to sleep. I tried to understand if it was just fatigue, or if there was something more. Early the next morning, we had breakfast. Madison barely spoke. She answered in monosyllables, stirring the sugar in her coffee with a distant expression. I tried to chat about the party, about how handsome Owen had looked in his suit. But she only shook her head. The caregiver who had stayed with Owen during the night met us at the door with a smile. "He was an angel," she said. "Slept well, took his medication, and woke up asking if new mom had arrived yet." When we walked in, Owen came running with that big smile of his, arms wide open. "Dad, new mom, you're back." He hugged Madison with all his strength, and I saw her stiffen for a few seconds before returning the hug, but mechanically. "Hi, Owen," she said with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Did you sleep well?" "I slept great. I dreamt that the three of us were going fishing at Lake Louisville, like you said you would do with me." Owen was radiant, recounting his dream with that childlike excitement that always melted my heart. But I noticed Madison looking at Owen differently now. It was as if she were really seeing him for the first time. A 35-year-old man in body, but with the mind of a child. During the engagement, she had only seen Owen for a few hours at a time, always with me nearby. Now, living in the same house, reality was hitting her hard. "Madison," Owen said, pulling the sleeve of her blouse, "are you going to make oatmeal for me? Mom used to make it every Sunday morning, nice and sweet." Madison looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher at the time. Was it irritation mixed with desperation? "Sure, Owen," she replied. But her voice sounded forced. During that first week of marriage, I started to notice small signs that my naive heart insisted on ignoring. Madison showed impatience when Owen repeated the same question several times, as he always did. When he spilled something or forgot where he had left his glasses, I saw her clench her fists. One morning, she came out to my workshop, where I was working on some personal projects to keep myself busy in retirement. She had a serious expression, as if she wanted to discuss something important. "Ethan, we need to talk about Owen," she told me. My heart skipped a beat. "What happened, Madison? Did something happen?" "Nothing serious happened. But he is very dependent, isn't he? He is already 35 years old and acts like a child. Don't you think he should be learning to take care of himself?" I felt a sharp pain in my chest. "Madison, you know Owen is special. He has limitations, but within his means, he is quite independent. He showers alone, dresses himself, helps with chores. But he keeps saying Mommy Madison all day, she interrupted with poorly disguised irritation. Sometimes it even scares me. He's a grown man doing that. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my calm. He loves you, Madison. He lost his mother and sees you as a new mom. It's natural that he wants affection. Madison didn't reply. She just shook her head and left the workshop. But her words kept echoing in my mind. For the first time since the wedding, I started to feel an uneasiness deep in my chest. Things seemed calm during the day when I was home. Madison treated Owen politely, answered his questions, helped with meals, but I noticed a distance, a coldness that hadn't been there before. It was a Thursday night, 2 weeks after the wedding, that everything changed. I had taken a sleeping pill because I was anxious, worried about the family adjusting. I was in a deep sleep when something woke me up around midnight. It was raised voices coming from Owen's room. At first I thought he was having a nightmare. It happens sometimes. But when I listened closer, I realized there were 2 voices. Owen was talking, and Madison was too. I got out of bed silently, my heart already pounding fast. The voices were getting louder, and I heard Owen crying. "Please stop! I didn't mean to spill it," Madison was yelling. "You're 35. You are 35 years old. Stop pretending to be a child." I ran down the hall, and when I reached the door to Owen's room, I couldn't believe what I saw. Owen's door was wide open, and the scene inside chilled the blood in my veins. Madison was standing in the middle of the room, her face red with rage, her fists clenched. On the floor were pieces of a broken plate and spilled food. Owen was huddled in a corner between the bed and the wall, trembling in fear. "Madison!" I yelled, rushing into the room. "What is going on here?" She turned toward me, and for a second, I saw a flicker of guilt, fear, but then her expression hardened again. "Your son threw the plate of food I brought him. He did it on purpose." "It wasn't on purpose, Dad," Owen sobbed, slowly standing up. "I was sleepy. It slipped out of my hand. I told Mommy Madison I was sorry, but she got very angry." I looked around the room. There was more than just a simple accident. The chair was overturned. Some toiletries were on the floor. "Madison, what really happened here?" "I just can't take this performance anymore," she said, her voice trembling with contained rage. "He pretends to be a child to get attention, a 35-year-old man having tantrums, spilling food, calling me Mommy." Owen looked at her with that confused expression he always had when he didn't understand the adult world. "But I'm not pretending. I'm just like this." "No!" Madison exploded. "You are an adult. Stop faking mental problems. Your dad spoiled you too much, and now you use it to manipulate everyone." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. "Madison, for God's sake. Owen has a syndrome. He's not faking anything. You knew that when we got married." "I thought you were exaggerating," she said, the words coming out like venom. "I thought he just needed more discipline, more boundaries. But you created an eternal baby. A 35-year-old man who can't eat without spilling, who cries over anything." Owen started crying harder, covering his ears with his hands. It was his defense mechanism when situations got too intense. "Stop yelling! Stop yelling! I don't like it when you yell!" "Shut up!" Madison screamed at him. "Stop with the dramatics!" It was at that moment that something broke inside me. 30 years of caring for my son, protecting him from a world that didn't always understand his limitations, and now the person I had brought into our home to help us was attacking him in the cruelest way possible. "Enough!" I yelled, putting myself between Madison and Owen. "Enough! You will not speak to my son like that anymore." Your son? She laughed, but it was a bitter, humorless laugh. That man is not a child, Ethan. He uses you. He takes advantage of your father guilt, so he never has to grow up. Madison, you are saying horrible things. Owen is special. He has real limitations. The doctors explained it 1,000 times. Doctors? She scoffed. How many doctors did you look for until you found one who would tell you what you wanted to hear? Who would give you an excuse to baby that boy forever? I looked at Owen, who was trembling in the corner, tears streaming down his face. He didn't fully understand the words, but he understood the cruelty behind them. He felt the poison, the rejection. "Dad," he whispered, his voice broken. "Mommy Madison doesn't love me." My heart shattered. I knelt beside him, wrapping my arm around his shoulders. "No, son. This has nothing to do with you. You did nothing wrong." "He did nothing wrong?" Madison was beside herself. "He woke me up at midnight, crying that he was hungry, like a baby. I brought him food, and the idiot spilled everything and still gives me that pitiful look." "Don't call my son an idiot." I stood up, feeling a fury I had never felt before. "Never call my son an idiot again. Idiot. Mentally deficient. That's what he is." The words came out of her mouth like bullets. "And you are a pathetic father who can't accept that his son is mentally disabled." Owen let out a cry of pain that echoed through the room. It wasn't just noise. It was the anguish of a pure soul being torn apart by words he couldn't fully process but felt like stabs. "Stop!" I yelled. "You have crossed every line." But Madison didn't stop. She was possessed by a rage I never imagined she had. "You know what you did, Ethan? You tricked me. You said Owen was just special, that he just needed affection. But he's a vegetable who's going to depend on you until you die. And you expected me to spend the rest of my life caring for him like some giant toddler." "Mommy Madison," Owen cried, reaching his hand out to her. "Please, don't talk like that. I'll try not to spill anymore, I promise." Madison looked at his outstretched hand with disgust. "Don't touch me. And stop calling me Mommy. I am not your mother." In that moment, seeing my son, who had never hurt a fly, who woke up every day with a smile, who loved unconditionally anyone who showed him the slightest kindness, being destroyed by those words, I knew my marriage was over. Not just over. It had been a lie from day one. "Take your things and get out of my house," I told her with a calm I didn't know I possessed. My voice was low but firm as stone. Now Madison looked at me as if I had lost my mind. "What? Ethan, you're overreacting. I was just trying to discipline him." "Discipline?" I held Owen against me, feeling him tremble. "You called my son an idiot, mentally deficient. You said he was faking. That's not discipline, Madison. That's cruelty." "But it's the truth," she insisted, her voice still loud. "Someone had to say it. You live in a fantasy thinking he's going to get better, that he's going to become a normal person. He is never going to be normal, Ethan." Owen looked up at me, his eyes red from crying. "Dad, am I disabled? Is that why Mommy Madison doesn't love me?" My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. I knelt to his level, holding his face in my hands. "Listen closely to what your dad is going to tell you, son. You are not disabled. You are special. You are different. But that doesn't make you any less important or less loved. You have a pure heart. You are affectionate. You are honest. Those are qualities many normal people lack." "What a beautiful speech," Madison sneered. "Keep creating illusions for him. See how that ends." I stood up slowly, feeling something change inside me forever. It was as if a curtain had torn, and I could finally see who Madison truly was. The only illusion I created was thinking you had the capacity to love my son, thinking you were a decent person. Decent? She let out a bitter laugh. Decent is assuming the responsibility of caring for a mentally disabled person for the rest of my life? Decent is giving up my happiness to be a babysitter for a grown-up retard? Stop using that word, I exploded. Stop calling my son that. Retard, she screamed, as if trying to hurt me on purpose. That is what he is, and you are also retarded for not realizing it. Owen began to cry convulsively, covering his ears. Stop! Stop! I don't want to be a retard. I don't want to! That was the last straw. I stepped toward Madison, and she must have seen something in my look, because she backed away. If you don't get out of my house right now, I'm calling the police, and it won't be pretty. The police? She laughed, but there was nervousness in her voice. For what? For telling the truth? For psychological abuse, I replied. For mistreatment of a person with a disability. Want to bet they will take that seriously? Madison was quiet for a few seconds, processing. For the first time since the argument started, I saw uncertainty in her eyes. You wouldn't do that. Try me, I said, reaching for the phone. Try me. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she looked at Owen, still crying in the corner, and then, to my surprise and horror, she smiled. It was a cold, wicked smile. You know what, Ethan? You're right. I'll leave because I discovered something today. I couldn't stand spending another day in this crazy house. She started walking toward the closet, pulling out some clothes and throwing them into a suitcase that was under the bed. Before I go, I want you to know something. I don't want to hear another word from your mouth, I told her. Yes, you will, she said, continuing to pack her things. I faked it through our entire engagement. I pretended to understand. I pretended to care about your disabled son. I thought I could tolerate it, that maybe he would improve with time, or that at least you would put him in an institution. In an institution? I couldn't hide the shock. Yes, in an institution where people like him belong, far away from bothering normal people. She closed the suitcase violently. But you are sicker than he is. You live in that fantasy of being a hero dad, that you're doing the world a favor by caring for a deficient person. Owen had stopped crying and was looking at me with an expression I had never seen before. There was something adult in that gaze, as if for the first time he was truly understanding human wickedness. Do you know what your future is going to be, Ethan? Madison continued, dragging the suitcase toward the door. You're going to get old. You're going to get sick. And you're going to keep taking care of him until you die. And when you die, he will be left alone in the world. Because nobody else is going to want to take care of a 40 or 50-year-old retard. Get out of here, I whispered, feeling a rage I never thought I was capable of. Get out of here now. I am leaving, she said, reaching the bedroom door. But I want you to think about something. I am the only one who had the courage to tell you the truth. All the other people you meet in life will pretend to understand, to accept. But deep down, they will be thinking the same thing I am. She stopped at the door and turned one last time. No one is going to want you to, ever. You're going to die alone, and he's going to end up in an institution anyway. It is the fate of people like you. And with those cruel words echoing through the room, Madison walked out of our lives forever. We stood there, Owen and I, in the middle of that broken room, surrounded by the pieces of the shattered plate and our broken illusions. After Madison slammed the door shut, we stayed there in the devastated room, Owen and I, surrounded by the broken plate, the spilled food on the floor, and the bitter scent of hatred still lingering in the air like a wicked ghost. The silence was deafening. All you could hear was the ticking of the clock on the wall and the ragged breathing of my son, who was sitting on the edge of the bed looking at his own hands, as if they could explain why someone could be so cruel to such a pure soul. I stood there, trembling with a rage I had never felt in my life, a rage that climbed my spine like fire. But at the same time, my heart was shattered into 1,000 pieces, seeing my boy like that. Madison's poisonous words still echoed in my head like a curse. Idiot, mentally disabled. Every word was a stab in my chest. "Dad," Owen whispered without looking up from his hands, his voice broken from crying. "Am I disabled?" That question hit me like a punch to the gut, as if someone had sucked all the air out of my lungs. I felt tears burning in my eyes, a physical pain in my chest. But I couldn't let him see me cry. Not at that moment. My son needed my strength, my protection. I sat on the bed beside him and took his big, warm hands in mine. They were a man's hands, but with a child's innocence. "Owen, listen closely to what your dad is going to tell you, and never forget these words. You are not disabled. That is an ugly, cruel word that bad people use to hurt those who are different." He lifted his eyes to me, and there was a sadness there that broke my heart in half. It was like watching a flower being stomped on. But why did Mommy Madison say those ugly things? Why did she yell at me? Did I spill the food on purpose? Was I pretending to be a child? No, my dear son. You didn't spill anything on purpose, and you weren't pretending. You are exactly how God made you, and that is perfect in your own way. Madison. Madison showed today who she really is inside. And she is not a good person, Owen. She tricked us all this time. She pretended to love us. Owen remained thoughtful for a long time, wiggling his fingers as he did when he was processing something very complicated. It was a gesture he had since he was little and always melted my heart. "Dad, she said they would put me in an institution." What is an institution? Is it an ugly place? I felt a tightening in my chest, as if an icy hand was squeezing my heart. It is a place where some special people live when they don't have family to care for them. But listen closely to what I'm going to tell you, Owen, and engrave it in your heart so you never forget it. You are never, ever going to live in a place like that. We are a family, you and I. And a true family never abandons family, ever. Even though I am different, even though I spill things sometimes, even though I ask the same question many times. Especially because you are different, I told him, hugging him tightly, smelling the scent of the soap he used, that scent of home, of a beloved son. You teach me things every day that I didn't know, my son. You have a pure heart that most normal people lost along the way. You love without malice, without ulterior motives. We spent the rest of the night cleaning the room together, picking up the pieces of the broken plate, wiping the spilled food off the floor, putting away the objects Madison had thrown in her fury. Owen helped me in silence, carefully picking up the ceramic pieces so as not to cut himself, wiping the floor with the cloth. With that dedication he put into everything he did. Every now and then, he would stop and look at me, as if he wanted to make sure I was still there, that I hadn't changed my mind about him, that I wouldn't abandon him like Madison had. Those looks broke my heart because I saw the fear of a child inside a man's body. "Dad," he said as we swept up the last pieces, "Mom Nadia never said those ugly things to me." "No, son. Mom Nadia loved you just the way you are. She knew you are special in a beautiful way, in a way God intended. And you love me the way I am, even when I mess up. I love you more than anything in this world, Owen, more than life itself. And that will never, ever change. We finished cleaning the room. It was past 2 o'clock in the morning. Owen was exhausted, his eyes red from crying, but there was still a restlessness in him, as if he was afraid to sleep and wake up finding that it had all been a nightmare, or that I had left during the night. "Do you want to sleep in my room tonight?" I asked, and I saw the relief on his face. "Can I, Dad? I promise I won't bother you." "You never bother me, son. Never." But even sleeping in my room, Owen spent the whole night tossing and turning, moaning softly, having nightmares. Every time I looked at him, I saw him sweating cold, murmuring incomprehensible things. At 3 o'clock in the morning, he woke up screaming. "No, please, I don't want to go. Dad, don't take me away." I quickly got up and turned on the light. Owen was sitting up in bed, sweating, his eyes wide with terror. "It was just a bad dream, son. Dad is here." "Dad, I dreamt you were taking me far away, to a dark place, and you didn't come back. There was a mean woman who yelled at me and told me I was disabled." I hugged him, feeling how much he was trembling. "It was just a nightmare, Owen. Dad is here, and he always will be. I will never leave you alone." "Promise?" "I promise with all my heart, son." But I knew that the poisonous seeds Madison had planted in my son's heart were germinating like weeds. In the days that followed, Owen was completely different. He no longer made his lively comments about the day. He no longer told his corny jokes that always made me laugh. He no longer sang those old country songs he learned with Nadia. He ate little, pushing the food around on his plate, looking at me with a sadness that didn't match the Owen I knew. It was as if a light had gone out inside him. He slept poorly. He woke up in the early hours, screaming, sweating cold, calling for me. During the day, Owen followed me around the house like an abandoned puppy, as if he was afraid of losing sight of me. When I went to the workshop in the yard to work on a project, he would come with me, sit on an old chair, and just watch me work in silence. "Dad," he said one of those afternoons, "why don't you find another wife, one who likes normal men?" I stopped what I was doing and turned to him, my heart tight. "Owen, why are you saying that?" "Because maybe you would be happier, and I wouldn't bother anyone else, wouldn't make anyone else mad." I put down the tools and knelt in front of him, holding his shoulders. "Listen closely to what I'm going to tell you, son. You never bothered anyone. On the contrary, you are what gives meaning to my life. Madison was a bad person who didn't know how to love truly, who had no heart. But she said no one else would ever love us, that we would be alone forever. And are you going to believe a person who is capable of saying such cruel things? Owen, there are good people in the world, people with big hearts who know how to recognize a treasure when they see one. And you are my treasure." One Thursday morning, I found him sitting at the kitchen table, stirring the coffee with milk I had prepared for him, but not taking a sip. He was looking out the window with an expression I had never seen on him before, an adult, heavy sadness that didn't match his childlike, cheerful way. "Dad?" he said without looking at me, his voice low as a whisper. "Maybe it would be better if I lived somewhere else, in an institution, like Madison said." I felt like the floor had opened up beneath my feet, as if someone had stabbed me in the chest. "Why are you saying that, son? Why that terrible idea?" because then you could look for a new wife. One who would really love you. One who wouldn't get mad at me for spilling things, for asking questions, for being who I am. I sat in the chair next to him, taking his large, warm hands in mine. They were trembling. "Owen, look at me." He slowly lifted his eyes, and there was a pain there that made me want to cry like a child. "You don't bother my life at all. On the contrary, you are what gives meaning to my life. You are the reason I wake up every day with a desire to live." But I'm different, Dad. Madison was right about that. I'm 35 and I still act like a child. I still cry. I'm still afraid. I still spill things. So what? Who said being different is bad? You know what I see when I look at you? I see a man who wakes up every day with joy in his heart, who holds no grudges against anyone, who shares what he has with anyone. I see someone who hugs me every day as if it were the first time, who loves me without asking for anything in return. Do you know how many normal people have lost that ability? Owen remained still for a long time, silent tears running down his face. "Dad, do you promise you'll never leave me? Even when you get old? Even when I give you a lot of trouble?" "I promise with all the strength of my heart, my son, we will grow old together, and I will take care of you until the last day of my life." A few weeks later, the lawyer I hired to file for divorce called me into his office. Mr. Peterson was an older man with gray hair who had known my father from the railroad days. When I told him the situation, he was outraged by Madison. "Ethan, Madison doesn't want any of the marital assets, none of it. She just wants the annulment as quickly as possible. She said she doesn't want any connection with you and wants to forget this ever happened." Part of me felt relieved. At least I wouldn't have to see that woman again in a long, painful process. I wouldn't have to go through the humiliation of explaining to a judge why my marriage had lasted just a few weeks. But another part felt deeply hurt. How could she not want anything? As if the months we spent together, the plans we made, the promises she made to Owen had meant absolutely nothing to her. "There's something else," the lawyer continued, shuffling papers on the table. "She left a letter for you. She said it was important for you to read it." He handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in Madison's small, nervous handwriting. I put it in my shirt pocket, not wanting to open it in front of the lawyer. At home, I stared at that envelope for over an hour before I had the courage to open it. Owen was watching TV in the living room, laughing at a game show. And that sound of his laughter gave me the strength to break the seal. Inside, I found a common piece of printer paper, written with blue ink in Madison's small script. I read it once, then I read it again, feeling a mix of anger, sadness, disgust, and relief. "Ethan, I am not going to pretend I'm sorry about what happened. I'm not. I tried to be a good wife and a good stepmother, but I couldn't. You live in a world apart, full of illusions and fantasies about Owen's condition, and I can no longer pretend to understand or care. Maybe I am a bad person for not being able to love your disabled son, but at least I am honest about my feelings. You created an eternal baby, a man who is never going to truly grow up, and I can't spend the rest of my life caring for someone like that. You will be fine without me. In fact, you'll be better off. I was just getting in the way, trying to force a normalcy that will never exist. I hope you find someone who accepts that situation, though I doubt it very much. Good luck. Do not reply to this letter. I want no further contact. Madison." I read those cruel words one more time, feeling a rage rise in my chest like a fire. Rage because she continued to use that cursed word to refer to my son. Sadness for having believed her lies, for having brought that viper into our home. But mainly, profound relief that she had shown her true colors and left our lives before causing even greater damage. I tore the letter into 1,000 tiny pieces, very tiny, and threw them into the kitchen trash. I was not going to keep another second of that poison in my house, near my son. Owen came into the kitchen right then, still smiling from the show he was watching. When he saw the pieces of paper that had fallen to the floor during my outburst, his expression changed to worry. "What was that, Dad? Why did you tear it up?" "Nothing important, my son. Just a very bad chapter of our life that has ended forever." He approached me and hugged me in his affectionate, strong way, as if he sensed that I needed affection at that moment. "Dad, are we going to be okay? Just the two of us? Will it be like before?" "We are going to be more than okay," I replied, returning the hug and feeling for the first time in weeks that this was truly the truth. "We are going to be happy again, my son. I promise you." But even with all my determination and all my love, I knew I still had a long and difficult road ahead to help my dear son heal the deep wounds that Madison's cruel words had opened in his pure soul. The months that followed were the hardest of my life as a father. Not because caring for Owen was difficult, it never was, but because I saw my son wilting like a plant without sun, slowly losing that natural joy that was always his hallmark. Madison's poisonous words had poisoned something very deep in his soul, and I did not know how to draw that poison out. Owen began to have anxiety attacks that I had never seen before. Suddenly, out of nowhere, he would start trembling, sweating cold, and repeating non-stop, "I'm not disabled, Dad. I'm not disabled." It was heartbreaking. I would hug him, tell him kind words, but I saw that the wound was much deeper than I could reach. One morning, I found him in the bathroom, in front of the mirror, looking at himself with an expression of hatred I had never seen on my boy's face. "Ugly face," he was whispering to himself. "Disabled face. That's why nobody loves me." "Owen," I shouted, rushing to hug him. "Don't say that. You don't have an ugly face. You are handsome. You are special." "I am not special, Dad," he cried. "I'm different, and different is bad. Madison taught me that different is bad." At that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. I called Dr. Eleanor Vance, the neurologist who had treated Owen since he was a child. I explained the situation, told her about the disastrous marriage, about Madison's cruel words. The doctor listened in silence and then sighed deeply. "Ethan, you both need urgent psychological help. Owen has suffered severe emotional trauma. If we don't address it now, it could affect his emotional development forever." "Doctor, I try to talk to him. I try to explain. It's not a matter of talking, my friend. It's a matter of specialized treatment. I'm going to recommend a psychologist who works specifically with people who have Owen's syndrome. Dr. Vance is excellent." The first appointment with Dr. Vance was on a rainy autumn Thursday. Owen was nervous, clutching my arm like a small child. "Dad, is she going to tell me I'm disabled too?" "No, my son. She is here to help you feel better." Dr. Vance was a woman in her mid-50s, short, with graying hair, but with a very sweet way of speaking. When she saw Owen, she smiled in a way that lit up the whole office. "Hello, Owen. My name is Eleanor. Can I ask you a question? What is your favorite color?" Owen looked at me for permission. I nodded yes. "Blue," he said softly. "Blue like the sky." "Ah, that's wonderful. Do you know why I like blue? Because it is the color of tranquility, of peace, and you seem like a very peaceful person." It was the first time in months that I saw Owen manage a little smile. Small, shy, but it was a smile. The sessions began once a week. At first, Owen left even more confused. He would come home and ask me questions that broke my heart. "Dad, why did God make me different? Why didn't he make me normal like other people?" "Son, God made you perfect just the way you are. Everyone has their gifts, their special qualities." "But what is my gift, Dad? I don't know how to do anything well." It was during those times that I felt like finding Madison. Well, thoughts a man of faith shouldn't have. How could someone destroy the self-esteem of such a pure person like that? But Dr. Vance was truly special. Little by little, she taught Owen to identify and express his feelings. He learned it was normal to feel anger, sadness, fear. He learned that those emotions didn't make him a bad person. "Owen," she told him in one of the sessions where I was allowed to be present, "do you know what your greatest quality is?" "I don't know, Doctor." "You have a giant heart. A heart that loves without malice, without ulterior motives. Do you know how many normal adults have lost that capacity?" Owen remained thoughtful. But Madison said I was disabled. "Owen, some people say cruel things when they are angry or when they can't understand something different. That says much more about them than it does about you. Madison didn't know how to recognize the treasure you are." Slowly, very slowly, Owen began to improve. The anxiety attacks decreased. He started smiling again, first shyly, then more naturally. He started telling his corny jokes again, singing in the shower, hugging me with all that strength. But there were still consequences. Owen developed an insecurity he didn't have before. He always asked me if he was doing things right, if I wasn't getting tired of him, if I wasn't going to look for another wife who might not want him. "Dad," he told me one of those nights when we were watching TV together, "do you promise that if you look for another girlfriend, you'll choose one who loves me?" "Owen, I'm not looking for a girlfriend. I'm very happy here with you. But if you ever do look, do you promise? If someday, far in the future, I meet someone, that person will have to love you as much as I love you. Otherwise, she won't even step foot in our house." Owen smiled, but there was still a shadow of insecurity in his eyes. It was around that time that we started participating in a support group that Dr. Vance recommended. It was a weekly gathering of parents and special needs children at the local community church. At first, Owen was shy, sticking close to me, watching the other families. But soon, he got excited. He met other young adults with Down syndrome, with autism, with other special conditions. And for the first time in his life, Owen felt part of a group, accepted exactly as he was. "Dad," he told me after the third meeting, "John also has the same thing as me, and his family loves him the way he is. See? There are many families who understand that different doesn't mean worse. It means special." In the group, Owen made true friends. He met Lucy, a 25-year-old young woman with Down syndrome who worked at a bakery and was completely independent. He met Mark, an autistic young man who drew like a real artist. "Dad, they are like me, but they work, they are useful. Can I be useful too?" My heart filled with joy hearing that question. It was the first time since the episode with Madison that Owen showed a desire to grow, to learn, to contribute. "Of course, you can be useful, son. You are already useful every day, helping me around the house, making me happy. But if you want to learn something new, we can talk about it." That is how Owen started helping me in the small workshop I had set up in the yard. He learned to organize the tools, separate screws by size, and sand the wooden pieces. It wasn't complex work, but he did it with so much care, so much dedication, that I was moved watching him. Dad, am I really working? Yes, you are, son, and you are doing very well. The smile he gave me during those hours was priceless. It was as if he was proving to himself that he could be useful, that he had value. After almost 1 year of therapy, Dr. Vance called me in for a private conversation. Ethan, Owen has evolved a lot. The wounds are healing. But I need to tell you something. He will never be exactly as he was before. That trauma changed something in him. Changed how, doctor? He lost an innocence he won't recover. He learned that the world can be cruel, that people can be wicked. That is not necessarily bad. In fact, it can even be a protection for him. But you need to understand that your son grew emotionally through pain. She was right. Owen was more mature, more cautious with new people, more aware of his limitations. But he was also stronger, more resilient. He had learned that he could overcome adversity. One Sunday afternoon, almost 2 years after that terrible episode, we were in the kitchen making an apple pie, Nadia's recipe. Owen was mixing the batter with his usual concentration, tongue sticking out, as he always did when he focused. Dad, he suddenly said, without stopping the mixing, I forgave Madison. I almost dropped the baking pan I was greasing. You forgave her? Yes. Dr. Vance taught me that holding a grudge is bad for the heart, and I don't want my heart to get sick. Madison was a sad person who didn't know how to love. I feel sorry for her. I was speechless. My son, who had suffered so much at that woman's hands, had found the strength to forgive. It was a lesson in greatness I would never forget. You are wiser than many adults, my son. I learned from you, Dad. You taught me that love is stronger than hate. At that moment, tasting the warm apple pie, seeing Owen genuinely smile again, I knew we had won. The scars would remain, but they had made us stronger, closer, more aware. The years passed, and our life found a new rhythm, a new harmony. A couple of years later, we finally managed to establish a routine that worked for both of us. He worked with me in the workshop every morning. He had become my right-hand man there. He knew where every tool was, organized the materials, and had developed an impressive skill for delicate manual work. Dad, he told me one Tuesday morning while sanding a piece of wood with all his care, Mr. Donahue at the bakery asked if I wanted to work there in the afternoons. I stopped what I was doing and looked at him. Mr. Donahue was a good man. He came to our support group because he had an autistic grandson. He knew Owen's situation well. And what did you tell him? I told him I would ask you first. But I do want to try, Dad. Lucy works at a bakery, and she is happy there. I felt a mix of pride and worry. Pride because Owen wanted to broaden his horizons, and worry because I knew not everyone out there was like Mr. Donahue, understanding and patient. If you want to try, we can talk to him about the conditions, about what you would be doing there. His face lit up in that way that always melted my heart. Really, Dad? You'll let me? Of course I'll let you. You've already proven you are responsible, that you work hard. We just need to make sure it's a good environment for you. Owen started working at Mr. Donahue's bakery 3 afternoons a week. At first, I was nervous. I would drive by several times just to see how he was doing. But I soon saw that I didn't need to worry. Owen had found his calling. He helped arrange the breads in the display case, packaged pastries, cleaned the tables, and the customers adored him. Your Owen is such a sweetheart, Mrs. Reynolds, a longtime customer, told me one day. Always smiling, always polite. We talk about recipes. He knows everything about apple pie. That was true. Owen had learned all of Nadia's recipes and was sharing cooking tips with anyone who wanted to listen. He had become a little celebrity at the bakery. One Thursday afternoon, I came back from the workshop early and decided to stop by the bakery to pick up Owen. When I arrived, I heard laughter coming from the counter. Owen was telling one of his jokes to two customers, gesticulating animatedly. So the man went to the doctor and said, "Doctor, I have a pain here that only hurts when I do this." Owen imitated a strange movement with his arm. Then the doctor said, "Well, don't do that." The two customers genuinely laughed, and Owen beamed. It was beautiful to see my son being accepted, being appreciated for who he was. "Hi, Dad," he yelled when he saw me. "Look, I'm telling jokes to the customers." "I see, champion. Your son has a gift for cheering people up," one of the customers said. On the way home, Owen was euphoric. "Dad, I like working at the bakery. People are nice to me. They laugh at my jokes, and I feel important." "You are important, Owen. You always were." "I know, but it's different. There, I feel like I'm useful to other people, not just to you." That night, as we ate the pork ribs with baked potatoes he had learned to cook and he was very good at it. Owen asked me a question that moved me. "Dad, do you think Madison was right about one thing?" I felt a pang in my chest. We hadn't talked about her in years. "About what, son?" "She said nobody would ever love us. But I have friends in the group, I have co-workers at the bakery, and I have you. So she was wrong, right?" "Completely wrong," I replied, feeling immense gratitude to see how my son had overcome those ghosts. There are good people in the world, Owen. People who know how to value a pure heart. "Yes, Dad. I learned that the problem wasn't with me. It was with her." That comment surprised me with its maturity. My son had really grown. He had developed an understanding of the world that I hadn't imagined was possible. It was around that time that something unexpected happened. One Saturday morning, while we were shopping at the local Kroger store, we ran into Madison. I saw her first. She was in the cleaning products section, thinner, with different, shorter hair. She looked tired, aged. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw that she also recognized me. My first impulse was to leave, to protect Owen from that encounter. But he had already seen her. "Dad, isn't that Madison?" My heart raced. "Yes, son." To my surprise, Owen showed no fear or anger, only curiosity. She looked sad. Madison approached hesitantly. There was something different about her, a humility that hadn't been there before. "Ethan." "Owen." "Hello, Madison," Owen said naturally, as if greeting any acquaintance. "Owen, I wanted to apologize." Her voice was broken. "For what I said that night. It was cruel. It was unforgivable." Owen looked at me, then looked at her. "It's okay. I already forgave you a long time ago." I saw that Madison was stunned by the answer. She expected anger, resentment, but found forgiveness. "How can you forgive me after what I did?" "Because holding a grudge is bad for the heart," Owen replied with the same phrase he had used with me years ago. "And I have a good heart." Madison began to cry right there, in the middle of the store aisle. "You do have a good heart, Owen. I was the one who was sick, full of prejudices. You gave me a lesson I will never forget." "What lesson?" Owen asked, genuinely curious. "That being different is not a defect. It is a gift." We talked for a few minutes. Madison told us that she had been in therapy, that she had worked on her prejudices, that she had learned a lot about herself. She said she had never been able to have a serious relationship with anyone again, because she always remembered the cruelty she had shown us. "You don't need to stay that way," Owen told her. "Everyone deserves a second chance." When we said goodbye, Madison whispered to me, "You raised a saint, Ethan. A true saint." In the car, driving home, Owen was thoughtful. "Dad, Madison changed, right?" "It seems so, my son." "That's good. I didn't like knowing she was a bad person. Now she can be happy too." At that moment, driving through the streets of Dallas, watching my son in the rearview mirror, I had the absolute certainty that we had won. Not only overcome the trauma, but transformed it into wisdom, compassion, and greatness of spirit. Sometime later, we decided to expand our small business. Owen had suggested that we make custom furniture because he had realized that many people in the city were looking for that service. "Dad, we could make those wooden tables that everyone likes. I know how to cut, how to sand, how to varnish. Do you think we can?" "Together, we can do anything," I replied with that certainty that always moved me. That's how Miller & Son Custom Woodworks became a small local fixture in Dallas. We were a perfect duo. I planned and cut the larger pieces. Owen did the finishing and dealt with the customers. He had a special way of talking to people, of understanding exactly what they wanted. "Mrs. Johnson wants a big table so the whole family can gather on Sundays," he told me after assisting a customer. "She has 7 kids and 12 grandkids. It has to be very sturdy." And that's how it worked. Owen understood the emotional needs behind each order, and I turned them into furniture that lasted a lifetime. Our life had found a perfect balance. We worked together in the morning. He went to the bakery in the afternoon. At night, we watched our TV shows and talked about the day. On weekends, we went to the support group meetings or received friends at home. Owen had become a complete, fulfilled man, useful to society. He had true friends, work he loved, a purpose in life, and especially, he had self-esteem. He knew his own worth. "Dad," he told me one of those nights, "thank you for never giving up on me." "Thank you for what, son?" "For protecting me when I needed it, for teaching me that I have value, for believing in me when even I didn't believe." That night, before sleeping, I thanked God for the second chance he had given us both. Madison had destroyed our family for a few weeks, but in the end, she had made us stronger, closer, more aware of the true love that existed between us. Today, as I tell you this story, Owen is 39 years old and I am 71. He's in the kitchen making that apple pie from Nadia's recipe, singing a song he heard on the radio. He is a fulfilled man, independent within his means, and above all, happy, very happy. Our workshop, Miller & Son Custom Woodworks, became known throughout Dallas and neighboring towns. People seek us out not just for the quality of the furniture, but for the love Owen puts into each piece. He developed a special technique for carving small details into the wood, always drawings of flowers or hearts. "It's so families remember love," he says. Owen now dedicates more time to our workshop, but he still goes to Mr. Donahue's bakery once a week to maintain his friendship with everyone there. Every Friday, he stops by for a coffee and to tell his jokes. It has become a tradition in town. In the support group, Owen became a kind of mentor for the younger ones. When a new family arrives with a special needs child, he always offers to talk to the parents. "I want to tell them that everything works out," he told me once. "That being different is not the end of the world." Last week, a desperate father arrived at the group crying because he had just found out his son had Down syndrome. Owen approached him, put his hand on the man's shoulder, and said, "You are lucky. You are going to have a child with a pure heart for life. That is a gift from God. When we returned home that day, I asked Owen, "How can you be so wise?" "I learned through pain, Dad. Madison taught me that the world can be cruel, but you taught me that doesn't matter when you have true love." It is true. Looking back, I can say that terrible night when Madison showed who she really was a turning point in our lives. Not because it was easy. On the contrary, it was one of the most difficult periods we lived through. But because it taught us lessons we will never forget. I learned that true love is not the kind that accepts only the easy parts of a person. It is the kind that embraces the whole person, with their differences, their limitations, their particularities. Madison said she loved me. But at the first difficulty, the first time she had to deal with the reality of our life, she ran away and on top of that, attacked what I love most in the world. Owen learned that not all people are good, that wickedness exists in the world. But he also learned that this does not diminish his value. He learned that he doesn't need everyone's approval to be happy. He just needs a few people who truly love him. Today, he is dating Lucy, that young woman from the support group who also has Down syndrome. They met years ago but only started dating seriously a few months ago. It is beautiful to see them together, planning the future, talking about their dreams. Lucy wants to get married in the local church, and Owen is already saving up to buy the rings. "Dad," he told me the other day, "do you think I can be a good husband?" "You will be the best husband in the world, Owen, because you know how to truly love. And if I have children, they might be born like me. If they are born that way, they will be very lucky. They will have a dad who understands what it is to be special." It's funny how life comes full circle. Madison was convinced that the two of us would be alone forever, that nobody would ever love us. Today, our house is full of people. Friends from the group, customers who have become family, Lucy, who is already like a daughter to me. For Owen's last birthday, we had a party that filled the backyard. "Look how many people love you," I whispered in his ear as we sang Happy Birthday. "Yes, Dad. Madison was very wrong." About Madison, we heard she got married 2 more times and got divorced another 2 times. An acquaintance told us she is still looking for the perfect person, someone without problems, without complications. I didn't learn to hate her. In fact, I feel sorry for her. It must be very sad to live looking for perfection in a world where everyone has their imperfections. Owen surprises me every day with his emotional maturity. The other day, he was watching a news report about discrimination against people with disabilities and commented, "It's sad, isn't it, Dad? Those people miss the opportunity to meet wonderful people just because they are afraid of what is different." That is the wisdom my son acquired. He understands that prejudice is a problem for the person who practices it, not for him. That the inability to love what is different is a much greater limitation than any syndrome. Sometimes, when we are working together in the workshop, or when we are watching TV on Sunday afternoon, or when he is telling his jokes at dinner time, I look at him and think, my God, how could Madison have been so blind? She had a treasure in her hands and threw it away because she did not know how to recognize its value. Owen is hardworking, affectionate, loyal, honest. He has a sense of humor, is generous, and has a purity of heart that moves any person of good sense. But Madison could only see the limitations. She could only see what he wasn't, instead of seeing everything he is. This story I told you is not about how a wicked woman destroyed our family. It is about how a true family overcomes any storm when it has true love as its foundation. It is about how difference is not a defect. It is just another way of being. Owen today is a complete, fulfilled man who contributes to society, who has friends, who is building his own family. The cruel words Madison said that terrible night did not define his destiny. The love that always existed between us is what defined him. If this story of protection and unconditional love touched your heart as it touched mine, hit the like button to cheer up this grandfather. Subscribe to the channel, Granddad's Diaries, so you don't miss the next stories I will tell with all my heart. And tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is there right now. Have you ever had to protect someone you love from cruel words? Have you ever had to choose between a false love and a true love? This old man is very happy to know who is on the other side listening to me. And at what moment in your day you took a moment to hear this story of love and triumph. I conclude this story with a heart full of gratitude. Gratitude for having Owen as a son. Gratitude for the lessons I learned. Gratitude for having discovered that true love is not afraid of differences. Madison did me a favor without knowing it. She showed who she really was before she could cause greater damage. And she taught me that sometimes protecting those we love means having the courage to choose, them or us. I chose my son. I choose him every day. And that was the best decision of my life. A big, strong hug the size of my heart to all of you who made it to the end of this story. The core lesson here, and one that is vital for anyone facing difficult choices in life, is that silence in the face of injustice or cruelty is a form of complicity. Madison's venomous words were not just insults. They were an attempt to define my son's worth and destiny based on her own narrow, prejudiced view. I realize that when you suspect something is wrong, whether it is a partner's intentions or a perceived threat to a loved one's emotional well-being, you must speak up and act decisively. True protection means having the courage to dismantle a toxic cycle immediately, not hoping the problem will fix itself. Furthermore, Owen's ability to forgive taught us that while we must never tolerate cruelty, we should not allow bitterness to define our future. Healing is found not in seeking revenge or harboring resentment, but in finding a purpose and building a future so rich in genuine love and accomplishment that the past's shadow simply fades away. Our final triumph was not the divorce, but the fact that Owen found self-worth and genuine connection, proving that authenticity will always win over superficial acceptance.